Yeah, so what anchors my faith in Christ? And I think generally your question is in comparison to the other world religions. There's a couple things. Actually, the more I study, the more profound Christ looks. Actually, I don't think these things are really that competitive. I think Christ, like when you're looking at Amida Buddha, it's surprising what you'll find, but people will say, well, he's a mythological figure. Well, I'm not going to go for that. I'm sorry, but that just isn't very attractive to me when I've got a real person in Christ who is so much more real. That just seems easy to me, that kind of thing. The other thing I think of is this. When I read the Gospels about Christ and something really speaks to me in his words and his actions, something is really very attractive there, okay? Now, I've studied a lot and I've traveled a lot and I've seen a lot, but by no means do I know enough to answer all the questions or to get, absolute certainty or full omniscience in terms of world religions and ideologies. I'm a little sheep. Everybody else is just a little sheep. And I come back to this pretty frequently. That shepherd looks really attractive to me. It's kind of what it comes down to, more attractive than anything else I've ever seen. So, for instance, this morning, in preparing for the sermon, what do? Well, I pray, and then I just spent some time reading the Sermon on the Mount. And something within there just speaks to me like, yeah, this is the one that is the one I think is the one. I think we're dealing with something more than human here. This is more than human. I think it happened, okay? Something broke through. And I read that, and it pulls me, it's attractive. I go, yeah, I agree. I think that's good. There's just this attraction, this pull, this agreement on an ethical level. And so I see that. And then as far as in comparison to other religions, it's historically there. I mean, we got, in Hinduism, you got Vishnu. Well, who knows when and where Vishnu ever was. Krishna, the tales there are really disparate and all over the place. We don't have the historicity there. And I think about Islam, and Islam is about one thing, okay? Islam maintains that, yes, there's some truth in Judaism, yes, there's some truth in Christianity, they are people of the book, but they lost the original faith the way it was originally given, and God needed to send Muhammad back to get it right, to get it back to the way it really was originally delivered by Jesus and others. So it got messed up, and Muhammad had to come back and get it back to right. I just don't believe that that's actually the case. I just don't believe that what we believe now is substantively different than what the early Christians believe. I know there are manuscript issues and so forth, but not to the degree in any way, shape, or form that would be necessary to support really the idea that the early Christians didn't believe that Jesus was crucified. They didn't believe he was the Son of God. They didn't believe all these things. And yet somebody come in later and messed it all up, and that's what it became, and so Muhammad had to come and fix it. I think the early Christians believed that Jesus indeed was crucified, that his message was that he was the Son of God, and for whatever tweaks and copyist errors and so forth might exist in the manuscripts, they go nowhere near overriding those fundamental things as being core to what the early church, the early Christians really believed. Okay? And it's important when we study these fundamental questions that a lot of times in dealing with religions, you're dealing with very fundamental questions like, was Jesus crucified? Islam maintains no. Christians maintain yes. I believe that belief went all the way back to the original Christians. In other words, I don't believe there was a time frame in which They didn't believe he was crucified. That got all boogered up. And now we need Muhammad to come and change it and get it back to the original. I think he was crucified. The Christians believed it, and that they also believe he was the unique Son of God all the way back. And so I don't believe there's a substantive change that has occurred necessitating a revisitation from God to get it right. And so that's why, I mean, it's just a fact. That's what I believe is a fact. So that isn't attractive to me. And these kinds of things. And it is, you know, I look at the person of Christ and I just think, it looks pretty good to me. Yeah, it looks right. I mean, there's something going on there. Better get in line. Behave myself. That kind of thing. Probably on a simple level. Does that answer your question? You bet.